Okay. Whenever you're sorry about that, you could if you just recap us from say like the industry or the organisation somewhere round about there then, because I think we lost a little. I will have lost a little bit.
Yeah. Opportunities for development in the organisation. I say if the organisation by themselves as a whole can start bringing in more and more artists, then it'll start to get attention to its other facilities like the film work and photography. It's got the facility to do just about anything media-wise, so I think it just needs to get its name out there, advertise, get more and more bands saying they've recorded it behind themselves, get more work in. So this way I've got an opportunity to learn about the business side of running a professional studio from professional engineers. The industry, all the experience I gained from my placement will make me a better engineer. That is just a fact. It'll give me a more professional attitude, and all this combined my better work skills and a better attitude. It's going to give me a much better chance of getting a job in the industry when I'm ready to. And with the current state of the industry, to have any chance of success, you really need to be the best. You need to be a bit lucky as well, but you've got to be as skilled as possible. So I'm going to try and get as much as possible out of this placement. The commercial environment, working around professionals is going to give me a chance to see professional work ethics, attitudes towards work and clients. I would consider myself very professional, very professionally behaved when it comes to studio work, as it is now from running my own studio outside of uni, working in studio care, dealing with clients. So I'd just like to see how my work attitude compares to them who are dependent on this for a living. So if we can pick up anything that will improve my work ethics, then it would be very helpful. I was watching when Mark works, who's running a session, he's like very laid back, but he always has like a well thought out kind of action plan. He's laid back around the clients, but when they go out, he's like, right, this is what we got to do. We'll do this. He's got it all lined up. And he acts like a mate of the band all the time. They just have a laugh. So I think it's giving the clients a chance to like chill out and feel comfortable. Hopefully, that will in turn make them relax and get through better takes. Get through all that. What resources are required and available? That's in the main octagon, which has the full 5.1 monitoring system, Genelec one. Also in the middle of doing a second 5.1 studio in there with a mini Genelec system. It's switchable between the 5.1 stereo and mono. It's got an RME Optimic, Focusrite Optipre UA610. Although I was chatting to Mark and said now that they're starting to get more and more band, they're looking to improve like all the front end. So they're talking about getting in racks and neves from outboard and that, which is going to be nice. Even they're talking about tape as well, which will be really nice. You have vintage Shops and Neumann mics, Bayer Opus and a nice selection of mics as well. Identification and examination of an issue that was evident during my placement. Had to set up and run a full live band recording at a professional standard, which doesn't really sound like an issue, but I was basically put in charge of this, and I had to make quick decisions, stick to them. But I've also had kind of a lack of experience when it comes to full live recordings. We've done a few in college, but nothing to the standard that is required here. So I really had to up my game. I had to think back and draw on all my experience and just anything I've read in Sound on Sound or the internet, and just try out. Even though I hadn't done it before, I had no idea if it worked. I just had to make a decision and stick to it. So what I did was we set the drums up in the live room, along with the bassist in there as well. We put his bass amp in a separate room, mic'd up with 58 and 414. The guitarist was in a separate room as well, with 57 in the DI, and the vocals were in a separate room in the vocal booth with a DI guitar. I've done this just to get the best separation, and also I made sure that every member of the band had a clear view of each other at all time. And we just had separate headphone mixers going around. Bad sound and drum kit gets a DIY fix. We went up for a couple of hours the night before the main session just to do a line check of everything. And the drum kit was quite a nice drum kit. It spent a bit of money on it, but it got in the main room and it just wasn't sounding right. Still, the toms were ringing out. They weren't in tune to each other. So we basically just made sure everything was working. And I come in early the next day, a couple of hours before the band was due to come in. And me and Mark spent a couple of hours tuning, which I haven't had much experience in. I've done a little bit of it. I know the basics of how you're meant to do it. But we just basically went by ear, not kind of what the rules, what you're meant to do. We just went until it sounded quite good. And to fix the ringing toms, I went a really kind of a DIY approach, just like lying around in one of the drawers at home was this roll of like double-sided foam or something. I have no idea what it was or why we had it, but it kind of acted as like a roll of moon gels, like that. So we ended up just bringing them in, cutting them out and sticking them on like a couple on the beater, a couple on the resonator head, and it actually worked really well, apart from when we finished the session and discovered you can't peel it off. So we just had to try and scrape it. But, the young, excited band members having their first studio experience. The band who I'm talking about here was a band called Notion from Liverpool. Sort of, they're basically exactly the same as Kings of Leon, named after one of their songs as well. But they were quite young, say like between 15, 17, I think at most, and they come in and they're like, really excited, messing around a bit, which is understandable, first time in a professional studio. So we just kind of acted like a mate, really, for most of it, and which did chilled them out in the end, and it ended up being really, really smooth. Like they were like really professional once they settled down and got to it, which was great. Discovered the drummer could play to a click track perfectly, which made life so much easier. But then we did notice at one point they were just moving mics, and so we had to try and stress how important it is for them not to do that. Like the reason we'd spent so much time getting perfect placements for these mics, so kind of had to be a bit disciplinary there, but do it in a friendly way as well. Yeah, there we go. We went through a Neumann KM184 on snare top and snare bottom, and it just would not stop clipping. The one on the bottom on the RME pre clip light constantly into innuendo, it was clipping, and we actually ended up turning the mic pre down to nothing at all, no gain, still clipping. So we're like, what can we do about this? What we ended up doing was we patched both KM184s into a stage box which runs into Studio B. So we took them out of that into the AMEC desk they've got on there, inserted the pads on the AMEC desk, then sent them out of one of the buses on the desk back into the live room, back into another stage box which ran back into the RME, which worked great. We were getting a lot lower level, but then it gives us a chance to crank the RME a little bit as well and get the sound of that, so that worked quite well. One sound a headphone amp put out mid-session, which did set us back a bit because everyone's complaining all of a sudden, so like, oh, what's happened? It was only the vocals that were noticing it though, so we thought it might have just been headphones. So we tried a couple pairs of headphones, obviously wasn't that, then obviously you go through the line and went through each channel of headphone amp, turned out to be one of them. Luckily it's just a lead, so we were able to fix that quite quick. Here's how I approached doing the kit. I was left in charge to set it up completely. I had a nice choice of mics, so I went for this Bayer, was it an Opus 99, to get the click of the kick drum. And it's got an old D12, not the D112, on the out of the kick, which sounds great, nothing like the D112. On the toms, we went for these SE Electronics SE4, which aren't the kind of the highest quality mic, but what I had to choose from, done that, and noticed I've like left them quite far off everything, because it's not a sort of close mic and band, you have to get the room for it all to breathe. Left them quite high. The KM184s on the snare top and bottom, I used the vintage Shopes mics as overheads, which sound incredible. And I also set up two, you know, the boundary mics, the flat wall mounted ones, on like each side of the room, and we ended up just cranking them, which added a real nice sound. How have I progressed in relation to my learning objectives? Well, I'd say tracking, I've learned a lot. So I've learned about how to keeping levels relatively low compared to how I had them before. I would basically just run them nice and hot as long as they weren't clipping. Mark has them really, like they peak at about minus 10 or something like that. So I've started applying that to my own studio sessions as well, which one of the things I wanted to come out of this with. Just makes things a lot easier when it comes to mastering. Don't have to deal with any clips. I've learned about watching out for if any of the waves go square when you're tracking, so I had to avoid that. I've had a large amount of experience trying out new mic placements that I could just experiment with. Like with tracking sessions in college, as you know yourself, we record the drum kit, everything close mic'd, minimal, trying as least mics as possible on a guitar, and we'll have like 857 or like a 414 as a room, if anything. But in binary shell, they try to do everything, like get the widest sound possible. For example, on guitar amps, we use like 6 mics just for one track. We ended up we had the amp set up in the centre of the room. We had the Shopes mics on mini stands pointing at the cone, but about 15 foot apart, like a triangle pointing in. Then we had the KM184 in the centre pointing at it, one directly above, hanging from the ceiling, pointing down at the cone. 57 on it and 414 on it. That's just for one guitar track. So you end up having like each session's like 80 plus tracks. So you got like be on it with your kind of labeling of all your tracks, your notes. You got to make sure everything's grouped and your previous takes muted, everything. So I've got a lot of valuable tracking experience from that. I think I did very well actually. I've been offered paid work in binary cell now after my work experience, which is probably the best case scenario. He phoned me after one of the sessions and he said now that they're going to be expanding to band work, he wants to get me in for some of the overnight sessions, and actually become an engineer at binary cell, a paid one as well, which is great. I couldn't really ask for much more than that. So I think that shows that I've made an impression at least. What I get out of the whole experience, well, like I say, I gained so much tracking experience. I also gained a lot of confidence and people skills from having to run sessions on my own. It's really good the way Mark could just sit back and let you run a session and kind of not interfere unless it was absolutely necessary if you're doing something wrong, which that didn't end up happening. We had successful, smooth sessions. So I got a lot more confidence out of it, which was really valuable, I think, to me. And that's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Yeah, why?
In fact, no, it's not. One more thing, I have to mention that up to now, I've only had 40 hours of work session-wise binary cell. The rest of them is going to, like I've got a lot of them coming up over summer, which is not part of the actual module. It's just like for paid work. But I'd say I was going to draw on some of my experience from working at Studio Care as well. I've worked there for 2 years, which is Studio Care is like the UK's largest supplier of studio equipment, hire equipment. We service all the old vintage stuff, make sure it's in great working condition. And from working there, I'd say that's where I've gained the most knowledge about the industry out of anything, like more than college, more than my uni or my work experience. Just chatting to engineers constantly, because you go into studios delivering equipment, you end up having chats, like you get shown around some of the studios, you get to talk to musicians, and the guys who work there are real super skilled anyway. You've got like one of the guys went to LIPA, got a degree from there, so I always pick his brain about everything. You've got Kev, who's the Pro Tools expert. That's been really valuable, because any sort of little problem I encounter, during a session I'm on my own, come in, I'll have a chat to Kev, he'll show me what happened, how to fix it, I'll make some notes of it, won't happen again. And I've learned about all the top end, like gorgeous equipment that you'd never get to have a go of otherwise. You don't have experience with that in college or anything. Chances are you won't have experience with that in one of your own sessions, because you're not going to go out and buy a 10 grand mic. But I've got to know the ins and outs of all the old sought after compressors and limiters and EQs. And over the 2 years, I've had opportunities to take all these different parts of this old historic equipment home in my own sessions, experiment with them, make my own conclusions about what they sound great on, what it doesn't work on. Just give me like a massive amount of knowledge when it comes to making kind of quick decisions. Studio wise, I've had experience with basically most combinations of equipment, and I can just drag something out which has got about a 90% chance of working pretty nice. So that's been really valuable. So again, people skills are definitely getting improved with working at Studio Care. Just the fact that you can't really go and deliver a load of equipment to a studio and be shy and not say anything. You like form a relationship with all your clients, because they're gonna come back and hire you again at the end of the day. I've had experience with live sound and events. That's not my main thing, but it's nice to go out and do it. We end up doing a lot of all of the Race for Lives over the summer. They're coming up, so we get to do like massive events to like 10,000 people and stuff. It's just kind of nice. It's setting up the rigs and tuning them, seeing what that's like. But yeah, I'd say my experience and everything I've gained from Studio Care has been more valuable than kind of anything up to now that I've studied. I've definitely got more, like learned more from just picking people's brains and trying out stuff than I have from sitting at a computer and reading about maybe something I've got to do for an assignment and just listing things. I don't know. That's just how it works for me. I just try things out and that's worked. So
I agree.
I'd say that was the end of my presentation now.
Okay.
Any questions at this time?
Yeah, man. With the Neumanns, why didn't you just feel you wanted to just change the mics if there were an issue? Why go to all that trouble to? Or did you just feel like you really wanted to use those for that sound? You felt you had to make a fix?
Yeah, I mean, those 1A4s sound so incredible that I wasn't going to let the fact that it was clipping make me change my decision. Yeah. I knew they're going to sound great. I've tried it before, the 1A4s on snares, and they always sound great. This is a band who's paying to come and get their first recording done. Mm-hmm. They want the best result, so I wasn't prepared to go, I'll use a 57 because that's never going to clip. Yeah. I'll put that on there instead. And I think the fact that you're willing to put in the extra bit of work makes a great impression straight away. Instead of just, if the first thing I'd have said to Mark was, that's clipping and I can't stop it, can we just swap the mics? That would have seemed a lot less professional than the fact that we went, well, let's think about what we can do and patched it in through a complex, but kind of overly like compilation
A big
need to
fix,
do anything
yeah.
like that. But it worked. At the end of the day, it worked, and we got the result we wanted. So I was happy with that.
Cool.
Got any other questions? It's
Um,
good if you can ask them.
Just put on a different
Oh,
voice.
okay.
I'm shouting.
Yeah,
Just
so over there,
go over
change
there
the
and change the voice.
Is that the only band you recorded there?
No, we recorded a band from Milton Keynes who were. I don't even know really what style I could class them as. They were like they had cello, a big cello player. It was my first time recording the cello, which was great. We tried we done a mid-side technique on that.